Now, loading up. Here we go. We're live.
You are one with this network.
Yes, we have Bill Dolan here. How you doing, Bill Dolan? And
Great prop.
my first question to you is, what did you think about that song I just played?
Man, I was really getting into it. Had a great groove. I loved it. Loved the bass line, the kind of almost a cool jazz kind of tone. So thumbs up for the intro song.
Thank you, thank you. That's a song that I produced, and so I'll let you get started, and you may start where you may. All ears on you.
Well, thanks for having me, Prop. Well, I know when we talked before the program, I think to just give people context, I think one of the first questions people ask is, who's Bill Dolan and why is he here? Well, just to answer that question, it really starts with me growing up in television. I was really an only child in a middle-class family, but like a lot of kids, I grew up in the television world. I watched television because it was entertaining. I watched television because it was fun, but I also watched television because it was an escape. You see, when I was really young, just early on in grade school, my father was diagnosed with an illness that basically he was supposed to die, and he was given a terminal diagnosis. And of course, when you get that, of course, everybody feels sorry for you, and everybody comes over and makes you casseroles and things like that. And as a little kid, I didn't understand exactly what was going on. But what I did gather was that there was something wrong with my dad. And it wasn't just because people were coming over, it's because he was changing. It turned out that he had a very rare disease that caused his arteries and his veins to kind of constrict. And as a result, he was losing blood flow in the tips of his fingers and his toes and the critical parts of his body. And it was as if he had frostbite. It was intense pain and throbbing pain. And because he had all that pain, um, he got angry. And like a lot of us, when you're angry and you're hurting, you tend to take it out on whatever's close to you. And for my dad, that was me. So I grew up in an environment with what I perceived was a dying father who was physically and verbally abusive, angry, and ultimately became an opioid addict because he couldn't consume enough drugs to soften the pain. And he got them through prescriptions, through friends. Um, and in the midst of all that, I really was just looking for a place to hide. And where did I hide? In my room with a television set. I did not realize that what was intended to be kind of a refuge and escape turned out to be the teaching ground for me to learn about storytelling, to learn about flow, casting, characters, music, comedy, horror, drama, all the things that go into a television show. Now, as I got older, two things happened. I became more interested in the arts, and my dad actually started to recover. Now, he never recovered from the pain. He still had to deal with a horrific pain side. And so we had a very strained relationship. But by the time I got into high school and started getting interested in the arts and writing and everything that went along with that, I talked to my parents and said, I'd like to study television. Now, I will say that that did not go over well because my dream was inside me. It was nothing that I had shared. And for them, they couldn't imagine any career path for someone saying, I want to get a television. My mom was a nurse, so that seemed like a good career path. My dad, before he was sick, and even after he was starting to recover, still considered himself a butcher. Well, those are two respectable positions that you can put a definition around. And you can imagine how someone could make a living doing it. But if you say television, are you kidding me? So reluctantly, they agreed to let me study television as long as I did this, that I got a job and work consistently in a respectable job. Now, for my dad, that was giving me an opening at the meatpacking plant. So I would go to college and then work at the meatpacking plant, go to college, work at the meatpacking plant. And I did that out of respect for him. but maybe also as a little kind of protection for myself, because even though I think a lot of us have dreams, think, oh, what if I could do this? What if I could do that? Sometimes we hedge our bets a little bit because we're not sure that it's going to really happen. Being an artist is one of the most vulnerable things I believe that you could do, because you don't just produce a product. You actually expose your soul. You expose your heart, you expose your dreams, and you expose your talents and your ability to execute at that craft. And it's like a lot of things, it's very subjective. So I went into that world not knowing for sure how it would play out. But I will just say, long story short, by the grace of God, I landed an internship at one of my dream jobs at the ABC affiliate here in the region, and opened up the doors for me to meet producers and writers and directors and celebrities and agency people that literally changed my world. I also, at that time, married my high school sweetheart and said, we're going to start a family. And that would be the typical beautiful story. Dream, kid has a dream, marries his high school sweetheart, starts a family, everything's okay. But one of the things I learned very quickly is that television is very, very consuming, excruciatingly consuming. It's almost like a mistress. And for me, it was a mistress that I embraced, because I loved being a television director. I loved doing the things I got to do. So much so that even after I left broadcast television and started my own agency, Spirit Media, I traveled so much that, unfortunately, while I received on the outside a lot of success, and people say, oh, look, you live in a big house and you have all these fancy things, you get to meet fancy people. Truth was, is I was an absentee father and an absentee husband. I was gone all the time. And I'd show up for all the, what I perceived were the important things. Certainly, I was there for birthdays and family dinners and family gatherings and school functions and all that stuff. Those things I didn't miss. Um, but what my kids missed was my presence, me being there, asking them how things went at school, wondering how their day went, learning about their friends, their interests, their hopes, their dreams. Instead, they would get a airport fuzzy animal that dad had picked up on the way back from another trip to LA. And that continued for a while, but it started paying the price. And an opportunity came up from a dear friend who said, hey, I've produced these documentaries, and it might be just the right thing for you. Instead of just going show to show and working with all these other touring events, why don't you think about doing a documentary? Because if you do a documentary, we can pour ourselves into it, produce something that could generate reoccurring revenues. And I think we have an open door if we do it right. I said, let's do it. So I produced really my first documentary project. And by the grace of God, not only did it turn out to look good, have great subject matter, was received well by the critics, but we found a distributor. And sidebar, for those of you who are artists, prospective television producers or documentarians, just remember this, that there's two sides ultimately to the success of any artist as far as a career goes. The first is certainly being a master of your craft and pouring yourself into it and producing a product that you're proud of, that you love, and you believe the audience will enjoy. But the second thing is you need a distributor. It needs to get in the hands of people. And I knew that if we produced a documentary without distribution, we would just spend a ton of money and a ton of time on a hobby and not something that was going to actually replace our income. So I say that because we did land a producer. And not only that, it was in Nashville. And he said, if you come, we can sign the deal. This is back when you used to fly places and meet people face to face. And he goes, oh, and by the way, I'll get you your advance check. It's part of the deal. What? Advance check? Man, I think we might be on the right track here. So on January 28th, 1999, I fully anticipated that day as a day that would change my life. Didn't matter what I had done as a television director, producer, how many celebrities I'd met, or how many fancy places I'd got to visit. I was about to become a documentary producer and transform myself into a space of large projects with reoccurring revenue. My life was about to change. So I got on the plane with my best friend, Timothy Greenwich. Now, Timothy, by the way, just so you know, he is a gospel singer and he's a big guy. I say that only for the context of the story because I'm a little guy. Some people would look at me and think, oh, you're Irish. You must be descended from leprechauns. I can tell by looking at you. And yeah, I'm not a big guy. Timothy, on the other hand, looks like an NFL lineman. He's big, he's strong, and he's one of the best gospel singers you ever want to hear in your voice, here in the world. And he's also a great producer, killer producer. So my buddy and I were hopping on this plane to Nashville. And I remember we were just minutes as we took off. And I was contemplating how this day was going to change my life. And I looked out, when you leave Portland, by the way, you often look out over Mount Hood and over the Cascade Range. And you just have this vision of something so much bigger than yourself. And then something happened. I started to feel sick. Now, I will tell you that for someone that flies all the time, that was really strange. And I remember thinking, this is just not right, because I was feeling kind of ill and I couldn't put my finger on it. It was like the flu or a cold or something like that. I was like taking a breath, and it's as if things were closing in on me and they're coming in like that. And it was so bizarre and almost dizzying. And I remember thinking, no, I'm not going to get sick. I'm not sick. I'm not sick. I'm not going to be sick. I'm not going to be sick. Oh my gosh, something's not right. And I remember turning to Timothy. And the last thing I said is I turned to him. I said, Timothy, something's not right. And that's the last thing I said before my eyes rolled back in my head, my limbs went completely limp, and my heart stopped. Now, for Timothy watching this, he's not a medical guy, he's an artist. And he even thought for a second that I might be joking with him. And I still try to figure that out, kind of going, oh, the dead guy on a plane joke, that's a classic, but I wasn't joking. And it only took him a few seconds to realize, no, he's not joking. So he began reaching over and doing chest compressions on me. I'm sitting in the window seat and he's like banging on my chest, just trying to get me going. He doesn't realize the gravity of what just really happened. And when nothing happened, as Timothy describes to me, he picked me up and he put me in the aisle and he began doing chest compressions over and over and over again. Made quite a scene, by the way. That's part of the reason that having this football player jumping on your chest, something had to be desperately wrong. And again, as Timothy described it to me, when he realized that nothing was going to happen, he said he pulled back his fist thinking, I'm going to break his ribs. That's what I've got to do. I've got to break his ribs. And as he pulled back that fist, I took a breath. For Timothy, he had just experienced 3, 4 minutes, it's hard to say, minutes of just this kind of midair 30,000 foot horror of thinking he's going to lose his friend. For me, I could have been gone for maybe 3, 4 million years, because while he was trying to resuscitate a body, my spirit had crossed the threshold from the dimension of time and space to the dimension of eternity. And literally in a blink of an eye, I became face to face with God. Now, I know a lot of folks there's a lot of stories that people have, and I respect that that can be a very personal thing. I don't know why they're different, who has what. I can only tell you that um, there were no signs like welcome to heaven. There were no golden roads, no angels or anything singing. I didn't see Uncle Joe or anybody else. It was me and God. And I can tell you that besides the fact that dying and coming face to face with God can be a very profound experience, I mean, is a profound experience, it was particularly powerful for me. And I say this because I think a lot of us shape our perception, our perceptions of the divine, of source, of God, whatever we want to call it, in many ways based upon the experiences we had as a child. And particularly if you grow up in any organized religion, where a lot of times organized religion tries to put a face on God, says this is what he looks like. A lot of people superimpose their relationship with their parents or key authorities as to what God is like. And in my case, remembering what my dad was like, and remembering what my dad had experienced, and remembering what my dad had said, even though if you'd asked me, do you love God? I'd say, oh, yeah, I love God. If someone had said, do you trust God? I said, oh, yeah, I trust God. If someone said, do you believe, God really cares for you or anything? Of course, I'd say, yeah, yeah. Basically, anything you see on bumper stickers about God and pillows about God or, poems and songs. Yeah, 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 yeah. But deep down, I was convinced that if I ever saw God, he was going to look me in the face and tell me, you screwed up. You really failed. You really let me down. You're such a failure. You didn't live up to a fraction of the potential you could be. So I did not want to meet God. I did not want to go through the horror of having the creator of the universe tell me how bad I was. But then I met God. And it was absolutely mind-blowingly different because not only did I just meet the creator of the universe, I met the embodiment of love. I met the source of love. I met the total expression of love. And the same way you talk about crossing into the threshold into time, into eternity, from time and space to eternity, so I was looking at love that was unlimited. It's as if I looked up, or I looked down, there was no end to God's presence in his love. If I looked to the right or the left, there was no limit to the presence of God's love. It was so big, so eternal, but intensely consuming. And it wasn't as if I was looking at God across the room. I was looking at God like this. It was as intimate can be. And in that experience, it's like a laser beam just went through my head. And I immediately felt like I had understanding. It's all the mysteries that you wonder about life just clear. It was cleared up. It didn't mean that intellectually all of a sudden I'm all knowing. I'm not. But spiritually, I got it. Spiritually, I got it. And I went from distrusting God to totally trusting God. And to understand that this person is not just a force. It is someone that loves me and actually doesn't just like me, doesn't just love me. And I can say that, and I felt that for everybody, that the creator of the universe doesn't just know you or like you or love you. The creator of the universe is madly, madly in love with you and has hoped every hope and dreamed every dream with you and shed every tear with you, felt every pain, but is believing for the greatest, greatest fulfillment of your destiny possible. And along with that overwhelming sensation was also the recognition that I was in a dimension of eternity where everything that ever has happened and everything that ever will happen has happened. It changes you. It just changes you. And then I came back. A lot of people like to know what it was like coming back. Some people say, there's talks about tunnels and things like that. And for me, going there, no tunnels. It was like, hello, God. But when I came back, it was time to come back. It was as if I was coming back through a tunnel. And in that tunnel, every single scene of my life was present, but it was cut up into like puzzle pieces, like 1,000-piece puzzle for every single scene, times every year of my life. And as if they were blowing past me like a tornado, just, and they're getting faster, 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 faster. And there was a sense of I recognize everything, but I recognize nothing. And then I was back. And I was back on that plane with Timothy. And I remember when I was back, besides the fact that Timothy's like, oh, you're back. Oh my gosh, whatever. And you hear this kind of gasp among people that were witnessing the scene. I was overwhelmed at how loud our world was. Because I had moved from a place of hearing completely in the spirit to now hearing with ears again. And I was like, wow, what a loud space. Now, needless to say, like I said, it made a scene. And they realized they need to make an emergency landing. They did make an emergency landing. And they couldn't find anything wrong with me. They said, there's nothing wrong with your heart. You didn't have a stroke. You don't show any signs of a heart attack. You're very dehydrated. So what they actually ended up doing was getting me back in a cardiac wing. I will say I said, is there any way I can make my way to Nashville? And no one says, no one's going to stop you. So what I actually did is I got a connection. I went to Nashville to collect my check. And I got my check, signed my deal, went back home, went to the cardiac wing. That's when they did a series of tests on me. And that's when I was diagnosed with malignant neurocardiogenic syncope. It basically means malignant. You can die from it. Neuro is brain, cardio is heart, and syncope means out of sync. And I have an extreme form of what might otherwise be considered a fainting spell. When all the neurons are firing the wrong way, the blood doesn't get to the brain and people pass out. I have a very rare syndrome where my brain tells my heart to stop. Not a good thing. And the only way they know to prevent it from happening again is they give you a pacemaker. And that's what they did. This pacemaker was my very first pacemaker. And they put that in my chest. I now have my third one. It's sitting right there. It's literally touching it right there. And from a medical standpoint, it monitors my heart rate. And if my heart rate drops to a dangerously low level, it kicks in and raises my heart rate. And then boom, it just monitors me and says I'm okay again. Now, here's one of the really cool things about this. It goes off on average about 6 times a day. Now, having died already, I have a view of life and reverence for life that I don't think a lot of people naturally have. But having this thing in my chest gives me even greater respect and appreciation for life. Not to say that it isn't going to work, but if for some reason it decides not to work, I might finish this interview, go to bed tonight, and never wake up again. And if I get up tomorrow morning and I take a deep breath and I open my eyes, I know I have been given a new day, a fresh day, another day that doesn't just define that I'm going to suck up resources on this world. It's another day I've been given the gift of life that I might be a resource to the world, to people. And honestly, that's the same thing for all of us. Because you don't know what tomorrow brings. We can plan, we can hope, we can prepare, and we should. But we should also recognize that every breath we take is a precious gift. Precious, precious gift. And because I believe you are loved far more than you could even ask or imagine, I live with a sense of divine purpose, not just for me, but for you. You're here for a reason, even if you don't know what the reason is. You're here for a reason. And you get to use this gift of breath and life to impact others. Find out what that is. Discover what that is. Celebrate what that is. It'll change your life. I hope that's a good introduction, Prop.
Yeah, everything is good. Sorry about that. Got a little echo there. Everything is good. Thank you for sharing. You said you had the thing in your chest. It reminds me of Iron Man. So I see you have Iron Man behind you. You want to get into that a little bit?
Well, sure. It's interesting that I got Iron Man after my death experience because, yeah, Iron Man has that thing in his chest. Fun story because, I work in the television entertainment space. One of the things that I did after I did, it died. It took me a while. I had to really process a lot about what happened. What does that mean? How does that apply in my life? If I've been given this life, how will I use this life? And one of the things I started doing was just going back to the roots of not only my faith, but philosophy. I was a big humanities guy in college. So there was a philosophy book. Chances are I read it. And I went back and started studying. And it was out of that study that, and of course, knowing I came from marketing, literally, I would say the greatest marketing plan in history literally jumped off the pages to me. And realizing why we're here, that we're not just here to suck resources, and to have transactions, but the idea that if in fact we are a product of love, how is that love expressed? Well, the only way that love is expressed is through relationship. And doesn't it make sense that if we're in business and we're conducting transactions as well as with friends, family, clients, that we understand what genuine relationship really means, not just transactional relationships, but transformational relationships that are rooted in love. And it resulted in me starting to practice that with my clients. Now, there's a lot of big billion-dollar companies did not realize this at the time, but I was practicing this marketing model with them. And they were like, wow, this is incredible. This is really incredible what you're doing and how you're doing. We had all kinds of incredible results, such that I ended up writing a book. So in fact, you see the logo behind me there, 7DRM. It stands for the 7 Disciplines of Relationship Marketing. So I wrote the book, The 7 Disciplines of Relationship Marketing, and released it on Amazon. Finally, I waited a long time, finally released it before COVID. And I got a call one day from some folks that are connected to Stan Lee. Now, for those that don't know Stan Lee, if you've ever seen Spider-Man or Iron Man or anything in the Marvel universe, there's a real good chance that Stan Lee was one of the creative forces behind that. And of course, not only was it comic books, but now it's into, we call it the Marvel universe. And Stan, before he passed away, really had a heart that he wanted his legacy to live on. And he was thinking of different ways to be able to express that. And so he had projects and ideas, but he had one motto. And I think for those of you in the creative space, if you're watching this and you're a writer, a producer, a storyteller of any type, hold on to this lesson. And it was his motto that he said, inside every flawed human being is a superhero waiting to emerge. Now you think about all the Marvel characters, and the fact is that all of them come with some flaw. It's a character flaw. It's a physical flaw. It's they struggle with something. They've had some tragedy in their life. In other words, their life isn't perfect, like you and me. Our lives aren't perfect. And so when it's not perfect, we think, oh, there's something wrong. But he said it's the root of that becomes the strength that rises up in the times of the darkest times and the most difficult times. And it is in those moments that we discover that each one of us have a superhero inside of us. And of course, Iron Man became the embodiment of that. And it was the Stan Lee Foundation that had read my book and said, would you come be a part of our team? So it was for a season, I worked with that foundation and helped them walk through the 7 disciplines of relationship marketing model, which really talks through the idea of creating a mission manifesto, why you're here, a clarity about the people you're called to serve, how that reflects itself in messaging, how you multiply something from marketing to a movement, which all the greatest world changers throughout history didn't just produce a product. They didn't just market a product. They created a movement. And that's what they wanted to do. And it certainly was Stan Lee's vision. And that's why, to this day, Iron Man sits as a memory to Stan Lee and to that core message. Inside every flawed human being is a superhero waiting to emerge. And that includes you. That's the story.
Yeah, that's a great story. I like that. When you were on the other side, did you see anything other than God? I know you said you were face to face with God, but was there any other entities or anything else you could make out on the other side?
No other entities. As I'm when I hear about other people talk about their experiences, I do hear about folks saying they saw relatives, they saw friends, they saw angels or angelic beings or other creatures or something like that. No, I was consumed with the presence of God. And just for the sake of clarity, too, and I say this half joking, there was no signage like welcome to heaven, or welcome to, Poughkeepsie or anything like that. There wasn't nothing like that. It was me and God. And I think God gave me exactly what I needed. And that was to recognize that there was a being that really loved me and wanted to have a relationship with me. It wasn't about them. It wasn't about giving you the home tour or, giving you the lay of the land, because I believe I was there to be able to have a divine encounter, period. That was it. That was it. By the way, and that was all I needed. and maybe more than I could take. So the short answer is I did not see other beings. I saw the being.
Yeah, that sounds good. So I heard you on a previous broadcast. Oh, another broadcast. Sorry about that. And you said when you were face to face with God, you looked left to right, and the love went on for eternity. And I've been wondering, what does that actually mean to you?
Boy, I guess it's trying to bring into the dimension of eternity what remnant was left of my perception of time and space. Because I didn't lose myself there. I felt like it was the total me there, but it was me in spirit. But that idea that I think almost like peaking in a way in my spirit was like, how big is big? How big? Uh, a little side note, for those that are tuning into this, Prop and I were talking about buildings and skyscrapers. I love skyscrapers. I really do. And I was talking about some of the tall skyscrapers in the West Coast. And I guess those things kind of fascinate me. And that could be, I'm saying this for the first time, Prop, that could be what maybe was stirring me is like, how big is big? And in my spirit, I almost felt like I was trying to find the top of the mountain, the the top of the structure. I was trying to look at where this was coming from. I was trying to look how far it went. And again, this was all in my spirit. It's not like I turned my physical head. It was an absolute overwhelming perception that I am literally in front of eternity, something that's limitless. Now, it's funny, I'm not an astrophysicist, but needless to say, when you start talking about having an after-death experience, people want to talk about eternity and their perception of eternity, you know, start showing up in your feed. And it was interesting that I was reading that, for example, if we wanted to get a grasp of our universe and our galaxy and its place in the whole star structure, if we could travel at the speed of light, it would take us 3 minutes to get to the moon. Not bad. It's right here in the neighborhood. It would take us about 8 minutes to get to the sun. But if we wanted to get to the edge of the Milky Way, it would, at the speed of light, it would take over 100,000 years just to get to the edge of our Milky Way galaxy. But take that a little bit further. What if we wanted to go to the next galaxy and the next galaxy and the next galaxy? And one of the mysteries of physics right now, astrophysics, is that right now our universe is expanding faster than the speed of light, which means there'd be no possible way to ever hit the end of our universe because it's traveling at a rate faster than any physical known measurement that we have as mankind. That's God. That was the sensation that was overwhelmingly clear to me. And when someone sends a post and says, "Oh, by the way, let me tell you what that looks like in the world of astrophysics," you go, "Thank you for putting some definition to it," because that's exactly what I felt.
That's amazing. So, what do you mean by the universe is expanding? What does that actually look like to you?
Well, I wish I could speak with more authority on that and send you some links to things that I've been reading. But to the best of my knowledge, so this is secondhand, please don't report that this is now a science broadcast, because it isn't. This is Bill Dolan sharing what I've learned, is that right now the universe appears to be expanding faster than the speed of light. This isn't a religious thing. It's not a philosophical thing. It's what physicists now are realizing as they're busy studying and measuring the distances between galaxies and the speed at which time is traveling. That's the extent to what I know. And I guess the same way when I talked about this laser beam that went through my head, for me to say that the universe is expanding faster than the speed of light makes sense to me. It's not that I understand it. It's not a cognitive thing, but it's very much a spiritual thing. That the world we live in, the creator of the universe, the dimension of time and space is way bigger than we can possibly imagine while we're in this dimension. Will I figure it out and be able to report it back in an executive summary? No, never will. Never, ever will. But this is what I can say. The God that I met is worthy to be trusted. And that's how I feel about it. The same way, and this is a really bad example, Prop. This is a horrible example. But the same way that electrician came over and did the lighting in my office, and I can flip a switch and all of a sudden light comes in here, I can't tell you exactly how all that works. But I've witnessed it, and now I trust it. And that's the way I am with God now.
Yeah, that definitely sounds good. What would you say to people that don't believe that there's an afterlife? They think that we just, pass away and it's just all darkness after that.
Well, I don't think there's anything I can say to convince somebody that hasn't experienced what I experienced. The truth is, if you haven't experienced something, you either have to gather what information you have to create evidence, or you have to have some type of faith or take a leap of faith to say, there may be something so much bigger than humanity can grasp and quantify that has meaning and depth and purpose. And we can only look at the evidence of our world. And, I honestly believe that we can look at humanity and think, boy, if you look around, there can't be a God because this is a mess. Or you can look around and say, there's miracles of hope. There's things that are so mind-blowing in terms of the intricacy of DNA and the human structure, and how life exists on this tiny little planet, and how it connects one with another, and how someone can love another person so deeply that they would care for them, that they would serve them, that they might even die for them. Those are evidences to me of something bigger than nothing. I think it's evidence of something. And for what I experienced, something very, very powerful.
Yeah, definitely. That's what it sounds like. I appreciate you sharing that experience. Would you say that there's other, because you said galaxies and universes, etc.
Mhm,
Would you say that there's other life out there? I guess you could say that
mhm.
fly in spacecraft or whatnot.
That's a great question. And honestly, I can say, I don't know. I really don't know. Um, I think I know a lot of scientists like to play the odds and say the odds are that there's got to be other things out there. But the thing that's interesting, what we do know is that it would take us 100,000 years just to get to the other side of our own galaxy. So it would take something profound that would be able to break space and time that would allow us to even get close to witnessing that possibility. That's what I perceive. Doesn't mean I don't believe it exists. I don't know. But I'm not holding my breath to find out. And I'm definitely not making any decisions in my life right now based upon that possibility. I think the possibilities out there are bigger and more profound than we can imagine. But going back to what I learned in my death, today I got up. Today I took a breath. And today I have the privilege of talking to you and making a new friend. And hopefully anybody that watches this, maybe I make more friends. Maybe I make some enemies. But I count that as a privilege that allows me to go into every day with a sense of reverent enthusiasm of what the day might unfold. And if I get another one tomorrow, watch out. We're going to do it again.
Yes, definitely. I agree with you. Do you have time for a couple more of my questions?
Let me check something here. I do. I think we have 5 more minutes left in the program, so I'm here for you.
Okay, sounds good. Would you say that since your near-death experience, your psychic abilities heightened? Would you say, or not?
Well, let's put it this way. It's hard for me to put the actual definition, say this is a psychic thing. Without a doubt, I am so thoroughly convinced that we are body, mind, and spirit. That our bodies definitely serve a valuable function, and are a product of miracles, biology, and electricity. That's for sure. I also believe that our minds are crazy more powerful than we realize. Our intuition, our natural intuition in our mind, I think we have barely tapped the depths of what our minds are capable of doing, or how to focus that energy in a way that is going to produce incredible things in this world. But I think when we combine the idea of being spiritually in tune, and along with using these incredible gifts that we have, there's something that manifests. And I don't even like the word manifest as much, because I think in many cases, manifesting is really a product of using the power of our own mind. It's not something magical. It is just a real function of our mind and the giftings we have. But I think when you combine those things, whether it creates an intense level of intuition, or, and I will say honestly, when you've had a profound experience, you focus on certain things more than you focused on them before. You hear things you didn't hear before. You're able to listen in a way you never listened before. And I couldn't say that I've become necessarily more like I've gotten some unique gift, as much as I feel like I flushed away so many of the distractions of the world that rob us at operating at a very much higher level than we do operate. We can operate so much higher. We can love so much greater. We can give so much more. I think we can hear and learn so much more. So to put an actual definition on it, I think it's bigger than the definition that I might try to give it. But I'll just say it's more, and it's a lot more. And it keeps showing up over and over again. And people say, "Oh, you have this." I'm not worried about the definition. I just want to be faithful to clearing myself, my mind, my heart, my spirit from the clutter and the garbage that robbed me from truly loving others with all my heart and seeing others with all my heart and hearing others and to be able to give with all my heart. I think when we're able to do that, we're operating our best self, absolute best self. And I'm excited for a world of that can do that, can be that for each other.
Yes, I definitely agree. We spoke a little bit behind the scenes regarding the acronyms or the letters behind you. Did you want to spell out anything regarding that before we bounce?
Well, yeah, if any, I would say uh, if anybody finds that the story I shared and would like to learn more about it and would like to know how to apply the lessons I learned, especially if you're in business or you're in leadership, because that's the world I lived in. That's where I was trying to put it together. That's where I wrote the book, The 7 Disciplines of Relationship Marketing. So if someone says, look, I want to learn more, go to Amazon, or you could go to our website, which is 7, the number 7, drm.com. And there's a place where it's been so much fun because I've been able to share the book, share the Audible. I've even put together a workshop for small businesses who said, how do I apply this? Um, and eventually I'll be coming out with a second book that's going to be coming out that's going to go deeper into some of the stuff that you and I have talked about, Prop. And I'm really excited to share that. And I'm excited to peel back the layers, so many layers that have robbed us from knowing ourselves, from loving others, and hopefully be able to absorb some of the lessons that I learned in my death that people can apply without dying, which would be great. I've said many times, I wish y'all could die and come back because it would change your life. But that doesn't go over well with most people. So don't die, but use your life, learn, love, grow, be the best version of yourself you can be. Because when you're the best version of yourself, you can be an incredible gift to others. And that's ultimately, I think, one of the most powerful lessons of my death and what I think people will be able to learn not only from hopefully this time together, Prop, but also from reading the book and being engaged in the future.
Yes, that sounds good. And a big shout out to people from Reddit, YouTube, X, Facebook for being in tune with us. Is there any last, things you want to say to the people before we get up out of here?
Just that I just want to emphasize that one last thing, and that is when I came face to face with God, it was abundantly clear, not just for me, but for you, that you are loved more than you know. And if you took a breath today, you're here for a purpose. If you don't know what that is, take the time to discover it. If you know what it is, live it. Because you never know when the last day is. But today, you can make today the best day of your life. I would just encourage people to take a breath, reverently, enthusiastically live that. And that's really my big message I'd love to leave with folks today.
Yes, it sounds good. And yes, I'd like to continue working with you further. Hopefully on some anything in the future, maybe coming back or
Yeah.
something like that. But we'll be in contact to see
Mhm.
what you think. And I appreciate you. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Prop. And I'm hoping to hear more of your music because you're good.
Wow, that's a compliment from you. Thank you so much. I
Mhm.
appreciate it. All right, have a good one. I appreciate
Yeah.
you.
Take care.